Welcome to Indie Music Podcast, episode 307, discussion of studio monitors. Indie Music Podcast now has a Patreon at patreon.com/indie_musiccast, and we invite you to become a member for exclusive benefits. For next to nothing per month, you can get members-only podcast video, early access to episodes, merch, and more. This morning, Matt and I get together for coffee and discuss different types of studio monitors and conventions for their positioning in your studio. Enjoy the show. I'm recording.
There we go.
Hi there.
Hey there. Hey, you know what's weird? When this came up, this was freaky. You were wearing last week's outfit on screen.
I saw that.
And then it flipped.
Yeah.
It was like what?
There's so many, the anomalies are boundless.
Quick change artist. Dude,
I don't know why that did that. That was really weird.
It was like Superman changing clothes. Boom. Don't worry, man. I'm having my own technical difficulties over here.
Oh, I'm doing good. Just kind of a slow morning here. So good to be back in the studio here this morning.
Yeah.
It's always, I say this all the time, but you get the headphones on and microphone interface and now that we've added, and a camera and a light and all the other stuff, and as it gets more complex, It's still good to just get the headphones on and
breathe.
Hey, it's Indie Music Podcast. Here we are.
Right. Not always as comforting for me because you're always up before I am. And this morning I was up late because I was up late. My son came in last night from LA. He got in about 1 a.m. And so I knew that he was going to wake me up when he arrived. So I decided to stay up and work on my business taxes, which I'm kind of surprised that didn't put me to sleep. But so I was up late.
That's why I love staying up late working on my business taxes.
Doesn't everybody?
Especially,
on a Friday night.
Let's take a look at that. Friday night. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So how things have changed in the last couple decades, huh? A Friday night, a Friday night 20 years ago was a lot different than a Friday night these days, at least for me.
I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so.
It come about 9, 10 o'clock on Friday night, and I was getting ready to head out, man.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready to head in.
And head in to bed. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, yeah. Anyway, so I slept in this morning.
That's good. Saturdays are good for sleeping in. I kind of did too. I mean, I'm 2 hours ahead of you, so I have that going for me. But alarm went off about 5:30, and I just hung out under the covers until about 7, and then got up from there. So
wait, you have an alarm that goes off on the weekend? Why would you do that?
I have it every day. I get up, really? Let the dog out, and I like to start my day. And normally we'll go down and let the dog out, get some coffee, get some music on, and just sort of set the tone for the day.
Yeah, I actually naturally wake up about 5:30, so I don't even have an alarm going off.
Yeah, I always wake up and it's exactly 3 minutes before my alarm every morning. I don't know why it's 3 minutes, but
that's funny. You can unpack that, but let's not.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about what are we going to talk about today? Monitor placement.
Yeah, or whatever. I thought that I was just kind of curious. And I was looking around. If you just asked the general question, what's the difference between like a near field and a midfield monitor per se? And is far field even a real term, even though people use it? I don't know. But I think
I was going to say, is that a rhetorical question? Because I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I've seen it written that way, and I think people generally know what you're talking about if you say far field, But the main difference is just basically how the speakers are designed for how far away they should be from you for the audio,
right.
How the speakers are tuned. And obviously like a near field monitor, which is I think what you're using.
Yeah.
And it's designed, it's really based upon what size room do you have for your your working, your mixing environment. And if you've got a smaller room, then near fields are what you want because they're tuned for the smaller room.
Right.
Now behind me, I have my mains, which are really neither a near field or a midfield. They're a full range speaker, so you could call them a far field if you wanted. And but they're at a distance of what you would use a midfield for. Which is these are about 8 feet apart and 8 feet from me. I have them set up in an equilateral triangle, and I kind of believe in that for no matter what distance your speakers are from you, whether they're near field or midfields or whatever, that maintaining that equidistance is important. It just makes sense for proper phase alignment and things like that, and time alignment.
Yeah. So after you mentioned this yesterday, I started thinking about it and started looking into it. I feel like the only terms that I hear frequently are near fields, mains, and loudspeakers. And I feel like loudspeakers are more like a PA system, right?
Yeah. Well, you could really call, these are loudspeakers. I think loudspeakers is kind of a generic capturing all, even your near fields are loudspeakers.
Yeah, they would get loud.
Yeah. And I don't think it has anything to do with volume. I think it's just, it's a term that's probably that's an old term, loudspeakers. I think that's been around since speakers started getting created. And, wow, that's a lot louder. Yeah.
Bookshelf speakers, because I see that too sometimes.
Yeah. But and a lot of these, and I have like your near field monitors work great with hi-fi systems, I think, and as bookshelf speakers and things like that. So I think that, if you watch any of the audiophile YouTubes, which I do, then they actually use and review those quite often. And it's always, the reviews come out as very analytical, not colored in any way, type of thing. And which is the purpose of a studio monitor, to be that way.
As opposed to a hi-fi monitor, which you maybe want to have a colored sound or a more.
Yeah. Like a Klipsch is known for being having like some colored mids and having more of a high end bump, and that's by design. And if you're listening to music, on a set of Klipsch versus studio monitors, you're going to get a lot different sound because the studios or the speakers are designed for different purposes,
right.
And that's where you got to listen. And do I like the sound of this hi-fi speaker versus this studio monitor for whatever the purpose is? Because you may not like your studio monitor up in your hi-fi room, where you like a hi-fi speaker better because that's why you're listening and the purpose of your listening in that room. But
yeah, that's tough. So let me ask you, because I only really listen to music on these speakers now. And they're studio monitors, so they're designed to be as full range as possible and technically as flat as possible, right? So you get a good representation across the spectrum, so you're not hearing anything that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
You listen to hi-fi speakers upstairs for pleasure. Do you find that there's a noticeable difference, or do you just kind of switch your brain and go, okay, now I'm in pleasure listening mode, so I don't think about it too hard?
Well, my hi-fi speakers are actually really flat. The thing is, though, you may enjoy badly recorded albums more on hi-fi speakers that have color than you would on your studio monitors, if you know what I mean.
That's
so
fair.
If you're listening for enjoyment, then you can probably better enjoy a wider range of music that has been recorded poorly over the years, or mixed or mastered poorly, or whatever the case may be. And there's a lot of that out there. Like Springsteen's albums are great, poorly recorded but great albums, and just raw,
Yeah.
and it's not nothing against that. That's the way it should be. And but you listen to those on a analytic listening in a system, it's not, it's not as enjoyable, because especially for an engineer, you're really kind of focused on that thing. So
Interesting.
you may like it better if you're on a hi-fi speaker that kind of helps things out a little bit,
Right.
but and Dylan, and early recordings in the 60s and folk and stuff like that, one microphone in a room kind of thing, and
Sure.
so and it's nothing against the recording, it was just the way that it was done, and it was done great for exactly what it is. It's just for the listening experience on today's system, especially because we're talking a great deal of time and technology development from then and now too. So
Right. Yeah. Back
but
when we talked about it yesterday, and that's something I hadn't thought about was everybody, I feel like everybody knows the guidelines for studio monitors is the equilateral triangle, but then again, what we never talk about is how big should that triangle be. And I feel like sometimes that basically is determined by how far away you're sitting from the desk and where you can put your monitors, right?
yeah.
But what I didn't realize was that they do have a range of where they're supposed to sound their best. Like you can't put near field monitors too far away or they don't sound optimal. So I looked in the manual for my Callies, and for this model, the range is 0.5 meters to 2.5 meters.
Okay. Yeah. I
And
was going to
so
guess
too
1
close
to
or too
3.
far away.
So
Yeah. So the 6-inch, those are the 6-inch, and they can go up to 2.5 meters, and then the 8-inch go to 2.9 meters, which is pretty far. That's
yeah.
farther than I have room to back up in here.
And I'd still consider that 8-inch to be a near field.
Oh yeah, I would too.
So
But I think it's significantly, it would be too much for this.
because I think maybe like 3 to 5 meters is more of a midfield range, somewhere in that neighborhood. But and what's the meters conversion? These are 8 feet away. How many meters is that?
That's like 2.5.
2.5. So I'm using mains, which is what I like to call them, versus I say mains because they're a main speaker,
Right.
box enclosure,
Full range,
floor standing, versus if I had monitors on my desk still, I would call them my monitors.
Yeah.
And because I think for me that describes, regardless of its amplification source, it describes it's purpose as well. But because I use monitors differently than I use my mains. But yeah, it's all based on your room size. With a smaller project studio, that especially like the how wide is a consideration, and depth is important, but and how far away from the wall do you want to be? What kind of response do you get that you like? Hopefully you experiment with moving off the wall or near the wall, and find an optimum distance from the wall from there, and then take into consider how far should I be from the speaker then,
right?
And based on how far you should be from the speaker, then determines how far the speakers should be apart,
right,
to create that triangle.
Yeah.
So you got to find out where's it orient with the wall, and then where's it orient with yourself, where are you going to sit. I mean, one of the first things I did was put tape on the floor in my studio. This is where I want to sit, and we'll see how that works out, and I'll start designing around.
I was just going to say that's where you should start, because apparently from mathematical calculations, the general optimal place for you to sit in a rectangular room is a third away from the wall facing. And so if you start with where you plan to sit and to factor in your desk size, then you probably should place your monitors after your chair at your desk.
Yeah.
If you can.
I actually, the subwoofer was the first thing I placed.
Hmm.
And I was moving it around. I didn't have anything in the room at the time. No acoustic panels or anything. No carpet on the floor, and it was just me, my chair with wheels on it, so I could roll around. A subwoofer and the amp up here, and then I was running music through my phone into the amplifier,
So
and just driving the
nice.
sub. And then I'd go around and listen.
Cool.
I'd go around and listen to where the bass was building up, and rolling back and forth across the room and to the and front to back. And when I felt like it sounded equally as bassy over here as it did over here, where that felt like it was balanced, that's the right location for my subwoofer. And a lot of people will put them off in one of the corners and everything,
Yeah.
and I think that's fine for hi-fi, but for this studio, I don't think that's fine. And it ended up being on center, just in front of my desk here. And I didn't do it. It's actually recommended to raise your subwoofer up off the ground, maybe like 1 to 2 feet, because
1 to 2 feet.
Yeah, on an actual platform, which I might experiment with and see what that does. But
I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, but that apparently really isolates that subwoofer and gets rid of the reverberation and floor resonation that you get with it being mounted so low.
Yeah.
But I haven't tried that. I think it's kind of interesting. It'd be good to, end up with a kind of a little subwoofer pedestal. And then you also got to consider that's got to be something that's strong and doesn't resonate itself. So just a wood box, I don't think is it. Or
no, because that would resonate.
Yeah. So maybe like a steel frame and just open, where it's nothing but the frame mounted on some isolation pads or something like that. But
yeah, I feel like maybe cinder blocks on a rubber mat.
yeah, something like that would work. So,
or rubber mat, cinder blocks, rubber mat.
I like the idea. Cinder blocks are cheap. That would be a cheap way to experiment with it.
You can even get the flat.
You get one of those workout those tile pieces that are like 2 foot by 3 foot workout floor material. You could put that on the floor first.
Yeah, we have that. We have that in the garage. So I had another question about speaker placement, and the triangle is interesting. And now I did find out, I was reading my manual again, and the Callies have built-in DSP, and they have dip switches in the back, and you basically, where you place them determines how you set the dip switches, and it changes the way that it resonates with, if you want it this far from the wall, you hit this dip switch. If you have this placed on your desk, hit this dip switch. And what it does is it kind of changes its bass response and crossover frequency so that it's minimally problematic from wherever the nearest surface is, which is cool. But I know that another rule of thumb is that you're supposed to kind of have your tweeters at ear level. Does that doesn't really come into play with your full range mains that you have far away, correct?
They're actually at ear level on my.
They are.
Yeah. So the tweeter's at the top, and the tweeter's actually in the center of the. That's a combination tweeter and mid-range driver on the top.
Oh, okay.
The next one down is a mid-range, and then it's got a passive radiator, and then there's one more. Oh, sorry. No, the top one is the tweeter and mid, and the next one down is a passive radiator for the tweeter and mid. And then the next one down is a mid-low woofer, and it's got a bottom one that's also a passive radiator. These are enclosed. They don't have any ports, so it's a sealed box.
Oh, okay.
And so it has the passive radiators to allow the air movement inside, but it doesn't allow air actually to leave the cabinet. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
They're
neat. And they're about like 1 inch thick cabinet boxes, or at least the front is. I think the sides are 3/4. So.
Yeah, I knew they were tall, but the perspective from the camera makes it look like they're significantly shorter than
Oh
mine.
yeah, no, that's it's just that the camera angle, camera's up for me just a little bit, pointing downward. So it yeah, because you don't see my chin quite so much.
You don't see mine either for the same reason. Like my it's
but yeah, so yeah, they're actually quite tall. So that that tweeter is actually right here.
okay. Mine's actually a little high, but I've adjusted my chair since
well
then.
You can also compensate for that with the angle, so that you're
right,
so you can, it's not that they have to be level with your ears, but they should be pointed at your ears.
Correct.
And so if they're low, there's no problem having them low but then angled so that they're facing you. So because we're just directing sound, so whether that's coming this direction or up this direction, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, mine are on isolation foam, and they are slightly angled down so that they're pointing right at my ears.
Now, where that might come into play is reflections. So if you're pointing up at your ceiling, you may get more comb filtering off your ceiling as a result than if you're pointing forward or even up higher and pointing down. You can do that too. So
right, and then you have to worry about reflections off your desk and stuff like that.
Yeah. Which is why I put this nifty material on. This is actually a glass top, but I put this material on to help.
Some padding on my desk to help with that. It's basically, it's like I cut up a felt floor mat, covered my desk with it. It's patterned. It's interesting. I want to touch on something that I see a lot in studios, and that's because I was curious. You'll see in studios, especially with like certain monitors, that people will put their monitors sideways, and they're not really designed for that. And I looked up why people do that, and the consensus is one that people think they're supposed to, but I think it has more to do with either space considerations or the fact that in a studio where you have a large mixing desk and you're rolling your chair around the room, then your equilateral triangle is kind of not a staple position because you're rolling back and forth. And in order to get a more consistent listening while moving your chair back and forth across your long desk, then putting your monitors sideways kind of spreads that you still have some issues because those speakers really aren't designed to be sideways.
Yeah, the Adam Audio YouTube channel, they've got a couple of videos about this and they talk about it, and they do go into some detail. And you're really messing with phase when you do that, because the speakers, those types of speakers, some speakers are designed to turn on their sides. There's some like
very few, I think,
like the focal. I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, Focal's got a higher end line that you can turn sideways, or you can turn orient vertically. However, when you turn them sideways, you actually turn the tweeter in mid assembly so that it changes. So anyway, but it allows you to do that. Other ones are designed to be horizontal and not be vertical. Like the AX7s or or AAX7s or whatever they are by Adam, and so those you do want to run horizontally. But yeah, you definitely want to, and every manufacturer will give you those instructions in the manual. You don't want to, you will definitely mess with your the phase and the way that the audio interacts with, from one speaker to the other. That sound is coming out. It's designed to come together in a certain way. That's those
right.
What do you call the outside of the speaker, the enclosure that, and it has the kind of the sloped
port.
Yeah, not the port, but just the design around the tweeter is really important, and the way that it's shaped to allow the audio to come out. And so when you rotate your speaker offset, you're messing with the way that shape of audio coming out of the speaker is supposed to interact with the other speaker.
Yeah, as you say that, I'm looking at, so I have a port below, and then I have the woofer, the main driver, and then above is the tweeter horn, and then the tweeter horn, the, yeah, what is the word for
I
that?
can't remember the name of it right now,
So
but yeah,
it's like a recess,
yeah. And
and
notice that
it's
recess is,
oval.
yeah,
It's an oval, so that it spreads the sound laterally.
right. And
And
so
if
if
I
you
were
turn
to
that
turn these on
sideways,
their side, it would go up and down, and like this, instead
yeah,
of being spread across the field, it would be two phases like this
right.
of high end information, and they would not intersect very well. So yeah, it would be weird. They would sound strange.
Not to say you can't do it. It's not going to hurt anything, but I think
No,
you'll get better. I think you'll get better audio quality if
yeah.
you go with the speaker manufacturer's recommendations on that type of thing.
I wonder if part of it is that, so people, I've seen it in studios too, where you'll have multiple ones that you switch between, right?
Yeah.
You'll have your NS10s, and then you'll have your more full range ones, and then like they'll lay them on top of each other, and that way you can have the same triangle. Otherwise, you're kind of, this one's next to this one, next to this one, and then you have like multiple triangles.
Yeah.
What's Can you have concentric? It's concentric if it's circles. What is it if it's triangles? I don't know, but nested triangles basically, where you have to be in a different position to hear it.
Now, there's one thing that you
consideration,
mentioned
but
a little bit ago that I wanted to catch on, and that was like the DSP that you have
Yes.
in yours. And
Mhm.
my train of thought on that is I would try to set them up without using DSP first and see where they end up in the
Yeah, good.
room. And
Mhm.
yeah, I know. And I think that and then does that, how far off are you then? Yeah, and this is really talking about like what's the distance from the wall, because those dip
Right.
switches are really based for how much room behind the speaker you
Exactly.
actually have to adjust the crossover. So where did that actually put you? I'll ask. I think you told me that ended up way too far out for your space, and so you needed to
Correct.
end up pushing them back to the wall, and then started using the
Correct.
DSP in order to compensate for your distance. Then, right?
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to get them so that they naturally sounded good in the room without having to mess with switches. And I'm glad that they're there, because the optimal setup for this room. I could come back a little bit, but not too far. I compensated for that by putting more absorbent paneling behind the speaker. Huge difference. So that they're really reflecting off the wall. And these are also front ported, so that's mostly reverberation, much bass information.
So I think the same holds true for whether it's a near field or a midfield, or a main. My mains are, they're at least 2 feet off the back wall,
Yeah.
by design, and I did, that was based on listening tests and stuff like that. And that's a manufacturer's recommendation. It's within specs of that.
Mhm.
So, I think the same principles apply no matter the size of your speaker. It's kind of what I gather. So regardless of if it's a near field or midfield, far field, main, loudspeaker, whatever you want to call it, I think the setup process is basically the same. Now you do have other types of speakers that are not in enclosures. They're built in. They're wall mounted.
Right.
And those are designed for being in a like a wall pocket, that's acoustically designed to hold that speaker. And you'll see a lot. Those are usually really large, very expensive monitors in larger mastering studios. So but I don't think those are nearly as common, in the home or project studio or something like that,
Right.
along those lines.
No, definitely not. It would be interesting if you had the room, whether built-in speakers is a better way to go. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never seen
I
anybody
think those
do
are
that
called
really, but I've been in
soffit
a studio
mounted,
where
I think.
they're there. Right. Yeah, I've been in a studio where they had giant soffit mounted speakers, and then on the wall, and then the walls were curved wood.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat. It was good sounding space. Yeah,
But
there's definitely multiple ways to build your room out with your
yeah.
speakers.
And then just real quick, then there's also one other part that we didn't discuss, and we won't go too deep into it because of time, but is dynamic versus passive
Right.
monitors. So do they have their own amplification? Are they a powered monitor, or are they a passive monitor that requires an amplifier? And there's that, to me, it's more cost effective to go with a dynamic monitor that has its own amplification, I think.
Powered monitors.
Yeah, powered
That's the
monitor.
only kind I've ever used. I've had a few pairs, and they've always been powered with an amplifier.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see. So these are passive, and it's just out of frame. But I've got an amplifier in between the two mains there, and that leads into a couple of. It's a balanced amplifier, meaning that it takes in a balanced signal, and so my entire signal chain is balanced, and that's for another topic that we talked about, which was like RF, and other types of interference, EM interference, and things like that, to minimize that. And so I went with a fully balanced amplifier so that I could run a completely balanced signal, all the way through my chain, all the way out to monitoring. And so that's a consideration, whether or not you're running, because I know like your near field monitors will have might have TS or RS connections,
Right.
maybe TRS and XLR as well. You might have all those options. It just depends on what monitor you have. But generally speaking, you'll have either a balanced or unbalanced connection at a minimum in your modern studio monitor that's powered. The monitors that are passive are simple. They just have left and right inputs. There's no amplification there. So it's why they're so expensive without all of the electronics, I don't know, but but they are.
Why is low fat and healthy food more expensive than stuff all the extra ingredients? Go figure.
So
different.
But anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to at least mention that topic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because it's definitely a consideration if you're going out looking for monitors as to whether or not you want to go passive or powered, and then what types of things you need to think about. If you decide to go passive, well, you've got amplification then that you need to be concerned with, and then in both cases, what type of connections do you want to make to them? And that's
what kind of interface do you have?
Yeah, it leads all the way back.
What kind of, like, if your interface doesn't have the kind of connectors that the monitors you're looking at have, well, you're going to have to place one or the other.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these decent quality studio monitors have multiple connection options. Although I think that you kind of have to pick one. I think I remember seeing like you can do XLR or you can do TRS, but you can't have them both connected at the same time.
No, I think those both go into the same channel. So I don't know which one would win. They probably have like a switch. If you plug them both in, then it's going to only allow one of those signals in. Correct. I would imagine, but I don't know. But yeah, you would have no need to do that because you're simply just sending a signal. Whether so in this case, a left to your left monitor and right to your right monitor. The one thing I do like is that since I went with passives, is I really freed up the outlets around my desk with the near fields, because each one had to have its own power. So that was two plugs. And I don't know if that's a problem for you, but every plug is worth about $100,000 right here, and so trying to as you add hardware, everything needs a plug and power strips and
I have two strips and they're both pretty full.
Yeah.
And I also have a USB hub that's pretty full.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a consideration. especially if you have things plugged into each other, like, that take up more than one outlet, for instance.
Yeah. So anyway, without going deeper into that, I just wanted to bring it up as a consideration. So
something that you should have in mind if you're shopping for speakers, or you're looking for some, to look for the words passive versus active, and know that one means you need an amplifier separate from the speakers, and you need more plugs potentially.
Yeah. But anyway, I guess that's all I got on monitors.
Yeah, I feel like we covered that
positioning. So
I'm happy with my purchase.
yeah, those Calis are nice. I'd like to have a set of the white, like maybe the IN5s. I think would be cool. I don't think I need a big pair. 8-inch would be. I don't need 8-inch monitors with what I've got behind me now. So what I could probably use is a smaller pair of reference monitors.
These 6 or 9, and they're decent size. I remember
I think the 8s are really large.
Our friend Stevie was like looking for some, and she bought 8s. I don't know if she thought it meant that the enclosure was 8 inches, but said she was shocked when they arrived, and she
they're
didn't
big.
Realize how big they were going to be.
Yeah, another thing is I don't want to put that great big monitor right here on the corner, because that's right in the line of the direction of my mains behind it. So
that's
having
consideration.
Yeah, so it's another deal with multiple monitors when you have depth stack. So it's one thing to have monitors that are all near fields and they're spread out equally along, like you mentioned earlier. But when you have different depth of monitors, now you have one monitor in front of another, and it's actually interfering with the stereo image. So right. Which is another reason I took the near fields off here, because I really just want to have this open with. This is too much, and
yeah. I feel like between your studio headphones and your mains, you could probably get just a fine idea of what's going on.
So, but anyway, there you have it. So
all good for thought.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you everyone for
in the studio today,
joining us for the this episode on everything you ever wanted to know about near field monitors.
Yes. Thanks for joining us. Check out our Patreon. That's new. And have a great weekend, everybody.
We should offer some sort of bonus for the first sign up on our Patreon.
Yeah, we should.
We'll send you your $3 back if you join. Join for $3, get a $3 discount, and just so that we can, maybe we should get hold of our brothers and sisters and cousins and get them to join, so that we've got some members, because I think maybe people go there and see 0 members and then think, well, if they had some members, here I might join, but nobody. I don't want to be the first one,
The first $3 sign up gets a $5 Starbucks card.
we could do something like that. Why not? What the heck? $5. Well, do it.
Think about it.
Well, I started thinking, well, maybe people don't like Starbucks. I don't know, but well, anyway, we will pay you to be a patron.
I'll pay you to pay us. Yeah, that doesn't track.
Yeah. Oh well.
Anyway.
All right, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks everyone for listening.
All right, see you later. Day.